Hello, Dr. Jama. So I'm going to begin my final exam, and I'm going to kick it off with Taylor Gilliam. She's my classmate. I'm doing hers. She's the one who presented this in class. It's based off of it's not what you do, it's what you were feeling when you did it. The modern impact of emotion on conflict perceptions. This is by Caroline Rankin and Monique Mitchell. So when we go to the discussion questions, the first question is define emotion. So, emotion is the state of feeling, and this can be sensory. So, in regards to me saying sensory, oh, I feel cold. That's an emotion. Feeling cold, feeling hot or warm. Um, it can be like touch. This is hard. I feel hard in my heart or stiff. A lot of this can be sensory. So just like things that you can touch, smell, taste, um, define emotion. So like, oh, I just had a rotten, attitude or, I mean, it's different ways to describe it, but your emotions can be, sensory as well as psychological, in which our emotions make us feel a certain way. So we can be saying, oh my gosh, I just feel so frustrated, or I just feel so confused, or so overwhelmed, or so perplexed. These are emotions that, our mind tells us, or that's psychological, that, we put a word on, like, um, to in order to describe how we're feeling. So, whereas I may say or use like a sensory word for, it was hot, so I feel hotter. I felt warm, or I just felt, rotten, or I felt hard. Um, and then using psychological terms to determine how we feel, or a state of feeling, like frustrated or exhausted, perplexed. These are different things or different types of emotions. So emotion is a state and feeling, and I just gave you like two different components of what emotion can be. Next, her discussion questions, Mrs. Gilliam. It says, how do you think negative emotions can affect a relationship? And so I found three different ways um, that negative emotions can affect a relationship. And one of the first things that can happen is in the process, like it can basically serve to make you have fear and anxiety. And so basically what that does is freezes our physical and emotional systems, and it makes us like demobilize ourselves, like we can't do or feel anything. So when we're in these conflicts and we have negative emotions, the way it can affect the relationship is that a person can just get fear and anxiety the whole time, and they can't concentrate, they can't just find the words to say, they feel defeated. It just freezes your whole being, into which you can't mobilize or motivate yourself to do anything. You're kind of down and out. And I do apologize for all the brief pauses, but I have bad handwriting and I tried to route the answers. Um, Next, it can cause sadness and depression. So another way that negative emotions can affect relationships is that it can cause sadness and depression. And when that ends up happening, this is normally used to strengthen bonds. So we see this a lot, like when someone dies. You see a family come together and rally together when they're all, sad and, they're depressed. It's normally a negative emotion. Sometimes it can be big and, just causing like a moment or period of just being lethargic, and not only lethargic, but it can help. It has like a positive effect of increasing bonds that you have with people, whether you rally around family or you rally around friends. um that's an effect that it can have on your relationship. It's just like determining the weakness or strongness of your bond. Another thing it can do is it can trigger anger. And what this does is anger gets normally confused with aggression a lot, and it tends not to be the case. Um, Aggression is more so like the act of being violent or attacking, whereas anger is just more like a sense of feeling like injustice, or it's they called it the emotion of morality. And so what ends up happening is that anger actually, in a relationship, it actually can motivate someone. It's like a wake up call, and it actually mobilizes you, gives you energy, and it's sustainable energy, to complete things, or gives you a sense of empowerment, like you want to do something about a situation, or whether you feel motivated to invoke change or be the change that you want to see, or it can be used as a wake up call. Like, hey, I need to see myself together so I can, attack, or, conflict, or, battle this idea or aspect of of a relationship. So the three different types of negative emotions, how they can affect a relationship, is it can cause fear and anxiety, it can trigger anger, and sadness and depression. Her next question was, Miss Gilliam, that is. What are the three conflict styles discussed in the article and chapter, and which one is the most effective? So basically, on page 197, it clearly pointed out that these emotions can either soften or harden you, meaning you can become in a conflict, you can become more softer toward the person, like recognizing your faults or flaws, or you can harden up, not want to talk to them, or change your perspective or outlook or view towards someone. Also, you can move towards or against the conflict. So normally, I would say it's more so like fight or flight. You can actually, run away from the conflict or move against it, in which you're either against the conflict, or you're against how the other person feels, or you can move towards it. You can be the aggressor in the conflict. You can, actively take on the situation. You can, want to fight, or you can just be against the principle. So that's another thing that ends up happening. Um, the next one, it says, is tighten up or turn away, or relax and turn toward. So in these type of conflicts, when you look at the conflict styles, you can tighten up and turn away. So you can just get yourself together, turn away from the conflict, um, or you can relax and turn towards someone during a conflict. So these are the three different styles. And then she asked, which one do you think is the most effective? I just depend. I just feel like it depends on your personality type and how you are as a person. So normally, I move toward or against a in conflicts. I think that it'll be most effective because it's giving you an active choice to do something about your situation. You actually get to confront it head on, and I feel like you feel more uh, strongly about it. Or you feel like a sense of gratification because at the end of the day, no matter what it is, depending on how you view conflict, whether a positive sum game or a zero sum game, you still have a choice. A lot of people don't have a say so, and it leads to less satisfaction in their interactions. So I would just say normally I move towards or against something that I don't like. I feel like it's the best way to get both parties to relieve their frustration, to put their issues on the bargaining table, and it involves to the most inclusion. So I'm more for moving towards or against conflict. So that's the conflict style I think works. And it says, what type of conflict style do you personally use the most? I think I kind of answered that. I'm more active in my approach, so I'm going to move toward or against something in a conflict. I'm not gonna, let it run over me. Like I'm gonna confront it. Um, and then it says, do you think emotions moderate our perception? Why or why not? And I do feel like emotions moderate our perception because based off how we perceive things is how we feel things. So if I perceive that you are being unfair or unjust to me, I may become angry. And this moderates my emotions based off of how I perceive things. It changes, how I feel. And so that's why, I say that yes, our emotions do moderate our perception, or vice versa. Our perception moderates our emotion, not the emotions moderating our perception. Um, but then again, that I think about it, I mean, it could be vice versa. It could be either or. They're kind of interdependent. Um, if I'm angry, and you're trying to give me some constructive criticism, if I'm already angry, then you may I may automatically assume that, you're an enemy or you're just trying to bash me, although you're trying to give me constructive criticism. So I think they're interdependent. So I did change my answer. I don't think either one moderates each other. I feel like they work interdependently. And for the example I just listed, normally one could say, "Oh, well, I feel like you were unfair and unjust to me. I'm angry," and they have the feelings of anger. But then again, um, on the other aspect, I can say that I'm already angry, and so now I perceive you to be a menace to me, or just out to get me for the simple fact that I'm already in this bad mood and I can't differentiate between constructive criticism or just criticism. So I think they're interdependent. And so that's it for Miss Taylor Gilliam's presentation of the article. It's not what you do, it's what you're feeling when you did it. The moderating impact of emotion on conflict perceptions. Um, Now I'm going to move on to my good friend Jordan Blair's article. Blair, well, it's not his article. Jordan Blair presented this in class. Congratulations, Jordan, on graduating. Dr. Jama, please excuse the informality there. He presented, and I went back, Battered Women's Negotiation of Choice. And this was an article by Baker. So, okay. So the first question is, in his discussion questions, it says, why do you think these women continue to go back to these abusive relationships despite the punishment they take? A lot of the women feel helpless in their situations, and a lot of them just feels like by them making an active choice to do something in the relationship that they actually have a choice. So instead of, some feel hopeless, but at the same time, some also feel empowered by having a choice to make an active decision to stay, therefore, releasing any control. They feel like, hey, I'm in control of my situation. Although it can be kind of farce, but hey, I'm in control of my situation. They feel like they can leave or get out of the situation at any time, and so they try to take an active approach. But the articles, or the text listed different reasons for why the women continue to go back. This is really like an opinion question. I just gave you my opinion why, but despite the punishment they take. It says, just one moment. Yes, so they feel like they're taking control of the situation, but mainly it all boils down because the reason these women go back to their mates or abusive partners is because the lack of institutional support from the police, counselors, etc. So all these institutions that are against domestic violence or abusive relationships, pretty much, since they're flawed in their methods and reasoning, is why the women end up going back to these abusive relationships. Okay, so he asks, do you think these women are crazy for going back or brave? I can't speak on the fact of whether they're crazy or not, because crazy is another issue of perception. What someone views as crazy, I may view as sane. What someone views as sane, I may view as crazy. So I can't speak to whether they were crazy for going back, but I can say that in most instances, just off the biological distinctions of how men are naturally bigger and stronger than women, although there's a few cases where it's not true, but for the most part, men are the more dominant species, and we're in like a patriarchal system, just on a global stage. So I feel like they are really brave. because a lot of them have family, they have children that they have to try to encourage and, keep moving forward while living their daily lives while being abused at home by someone who's a lot stronger. And normally the more powerful person or more powerful being tends to be, the more dominant person in the relationship and the strong ones. So I definitely feel like they are brave for going back to these situations, especially where they're being beat on and battered. It says, what are the three resistance steps taken to gain control? So the first one is the first step in this resistance strategy is staying with their abuser. When the women get beat on, they choose to return to the abusive husband or significant other. So this is the first way that they try to take back control or gain control. The second strategy is ignoring, and they lift the bans on their partner's restraining orders. So they don't follow, the restraining orders. They lift them. And a lot of the times it's out of fear. In the quote, it says, when Tammy talked about ignoring a restraining order on her partner, she contended that he verbally and emotionally harassed her until she gave in. So some women feel helpless and they just like, hey, it's a piece of paper. It's not going to work. It's not going to stop someone from coming to my doorstep. And lastly, the last step taken to gain control is the women refuse to call or cooperate with the police. So they just, won't comply, or they won't call the cops when they're being beaten or threatened. So let's answer that question. It says, the fourth question is, even though the woman takes a beating, does the man really have power in their relationship? And the reason I say no is for the simple fact that there's ways to get out of these situations. And the women stay in these situations in order to gain power. We just talked about the three ways they try to gain power, which is by, ignoring to follow these restraining orders, by choosing to stay with the abuser, also by, refusing to call the police. These women have active choices, although they do fear for their lives sometimes, or, worry about the livelihood or their children. At the same time, they have active choices, and it's a choice for them to stay. They want to stay, and sometimes make an active decision to say, hey, technically, although you're beating me and you're more dominant than me, I still have the power because I choose to be here. I choose to be in this situation. They have the perception that they can leave the situation whenever they want. And so this is a way for them to gain control and feel in control. So not all the time when the man beats the women do they have the power. Women still, have a lot of amount of power because they're making an active decision or conscious decision to stay where they're at. And then the last question, it says, which do you think is more effective, the dominant cultural script or the resistance steps? I feel like the dominant cultural script relies too much on institutions, to stop the process of, like the violence and the different things that these women go through. So like seeking counseling and going to the shelters and calling the police. While this is a hard question, but I will say the resistance steps, more so because it's more of an empowerment or a mindset thing to me. I've seen plenty of times where, police, arrest a guy, he'll get out of jail, come back and kill him, or someone to put a restraining order, he can still come to the house and, beat the woman or, attack her, kidnap her, hold her hostage. The institution has rules and they only can go so far. And whereas I feel like by having these resistance steps, these women, they give themselves a sense of empowerment or a sense of power to where they're consciously making this decision. If they want to get out of their current situations, they can leave there because they're making a conscious decision not to call the cops. They can call the cops. They're making an active decision to stay with the abuser. They can sneak out. They can wait till the abuser goes to work. They can, there's options there. Also, they choose, they choose whether to lift the restraining orders or to place a restraining order. So I feel like the more effective strategy is resistance steps, because they're making a conscious decision, and at any point in time they can stop their current situation. Okay, so lastly, thank you, Mr. Blair, for that. Lastly, I know my video's running a little long. You have to grade other students, so let's get to the last one. um, which is Film Collaboration and Creative Conflict. This is by Hodge, and the author's last name is Hodge. I don't know the first name. And Kiana Thomas presented this in class. So let's get into it. The first question is, what is collaborative negotiation? So in the text, collaborative negotiation focus on negotiation requires listening to the other party, indicating that you understand his or her concerns, expressing your feelings, stating your points in a firm but friendly manner, linking your points to points expressed by the other party, and working toward a joint resolution that builds on the ideals of both parties and addresses all concerns. So some of the assumptions that coincide with collaborative negotiation is understanding that the parties have diverse interests or different interests, and while also having diverse interests, they also share common interests, and that the negotiation process can result in both parties gaining something. So basically, it's a positive. We both win. It's a win-win. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not you win or I win. We can both win if we analyze the situation and try to see where our interests coincide so that we can make an informed decision. So next, she asked, what are the four core concerns that are usually presented in crucial interactions? And so we have four. And so we deal with appreciation. So appreciation status. Am I valued on this crew? Then we have affiliation. Am I being treated as a colleague or an adversary? Then we have role. What is my role? Do others see my role the same way I do? And then we have autonomy. Am I being kept from doing my job? So these are the four different concerns that are presented in crucial interactions. The next question, it says, in your own experiences, do you find it hard to collaborate with others when in a group setting? Why or why not? I don't find it hard to collaborate with others just for the simple fact it's my personality and my style. It's just based off of research, the collaborative style offers the most creativity and the most productivity because it allows for a more wide and diverse range of ideas and ingenuity and thoughts and schools of thoughts. So to me, it's not hard to collaborate with others because in order to get a wide variety or range of options rather than a limited one, because of you may get a certain amount of people that think alike, so they're thinking one way. When your setting is more diverse and collaborative in nature, you often see that you get a better variety of answers or options. So I don't find it hard to collaborate with others. And why is for the simple fact that I know at the end of the day it's going to help me. I know it's the model for the most efficiency in group setting and also for the most creativity and productivity. And then the last question is, which approach to negotiation do you feel is best to have? And I know there's the competitive and there's the avoidance. When I did my research on avoidance method, it doesn't have a significant impact on satisfaction or productivity. Competitive styles normally have a negative impact on creativity and productivity. So when in a group, I feel like since you never know what kind of group you're going to have, and it could be diverse. Whenever you're dealing with people you don't really know or don't know how they're going to think or react, it's always good to use the collaborative style in which you're able to offer your input based off your way of thinking and off of your experiences while doing the same for others. And then going from there, placing your concerns on the table for discussion and, incorporating others until you find one that fits the mode of a group or is going to allow for the most creativity and productivity, because that way you offer for a wide variety of options to, pull answers from or pour solutions from. And so it's more creative because you're not thinking out of you know, one set of options based off your thinking. You have multiple ones to account for. So I definitely think that collaborative is the best style to have in a group setting. And with that, that ends my questions. So thank you, Jordan Blair, Kiana Thomas, and Taylor Gilliam, the presenters, for letting me use your or sending me your lecture notes or reading notes so that I can answer them. It's been a awesome semester with you, Dr. Jama, and you have fun grading this. Hope you can hear me. All right, bye.